Before you scroll, before you convince yourself this is just another video, you need to hear this. Last week, a woman sat alone on the edge of her bed at 2:17 a.m., staring at her phone. She had just discovered screenshots of a private conversation about her name passed around like entertainment, her struggles dissected, her character questioned. They smiled in her face. They prayed with her. And then they whispered about her. She felt humiliated. Small. Exposed. But what she didn't know in that moment, what you may not know right now, is that every whisper triggered something far beyond that group chat. Chosen One, a secret report about you just reached heaven. Before we go any further, take this as your confirmation. If messages like this strengthen your spirit, quietly subscribe and stay connected. Not for numbers. Not for hype. But because when heaven speaks, you don't want to miss the next instruction. Now lean in. You thought it was just gossip. Just jealousy. Just insecure people projecting their wounds onto you. But there is something you must understand. Nothing spoken about you escapes record. Nothing muttered in envy disappears into thin air. Every word has weight. Every accusation has an echo. Scripture says in Matthew 12 verse 36 that every careless word will be accounted for. Not some words. Not only public words. Every word. When they thought they were just venting, heaven was documenting. When they assumed you would never find out, heaven had already opened the file. And here is the part that will shake you. The review was not open to condemn you. It was open to defend you. You see, when Jesus stood before false accusers, when they twisted his words and hired people to lie about him, heaven did not panic. Heaven did not scramble. Heaven allowed the lies to expose the hearts of the liars. The cross looked like defeat. The gossip looked successful. The secret meetings looked powerful. But 3 days later, the verdict reversed everything. The whispers about you are not building a case against you. They are revealing who cannot go where you are going. You've been feeling it, haven't you? The sudden distance. The awkward energy. The subtle shade in conversations. You sensed something shifted, but you blamed yourself. You wondered if you were too ambitious. Too confident. Too favored. Too anointed. Too different. Let me ask you something that may make you uncomfortable. What if the report was triggered because your growth made them nervous? Heaven reviews movements, not mediocrity. No one files a report on someone who is stagnant. No one gathers to discuss someone who is invisible. The fact that your name entered rooms you were not physically in means your presence is expanding beyond your permission. And here is the mystery: while they were building a narrative, heaven was building a decree. Psalm 105:15 says, "Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm." That is not poetry. That is protocol. Chosen One, you were never meant to defend yourself in rooms where God is preparing to vindicate you. That's why you felt restrained. That's why every time you tried to clap back, something told you to stay quiet. That wasn't weakness. That was protection. Because if you had interfered, you would have interrupted what was being assembled in your favor. The secret report didn't surprise heaven. It activated heaven. There is a difference. And here is where this becomes personal. You've been crying in private. Questioning your worth. Wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe you are too much. Maybe your standards are too high. Maybe your faith is too visible. Maybe your discipline makes others uncomfortable. Listen carefully. the very traits they are criticizing are the evidence attached to your elevation. They said you changed. Yes. You did. They said you act different. Yes. Because you grew. They said you think you're better. No. You just stopped shrinking. And that shift triggered a spiritual review. In the middle of the night, when you felt alone, heaven was not silent. Decisions were being discussed. Doors were being evaluated. Alignments were being rearranged. But here is what you don't see yet. The decree that has been released is not just about clearing your name. It's about repositioning your life. Some relationships are about to fade without drama. Some invitations will quietly disappear. Some opportunities will close, but not as punishment. As protection. Because when a report reaches heaven, two things happen: exposure and separation. Exposure reveals who spoke. Separation removes who cannot stay. And if you think this is intense now, you are not ready for what is about to unfold next. Because the same whisper campaign meant to isolate you is about to become the announcement that introduces you to rooms they never qualified for. But before that happens, there is something else you must understand about the decree that was issued, and it involves timing, favor, and a reversal no one saw coming. Are you ready to hear what heaven decided next? You felt it before you understood it. The shift. The strange calm that started replacing your anger. The silence that felt heavy at first, but then started to feel strategic. You thought you were losing people. What you didn't realize is that heaven was thinning the crowd. Because when that secret report about you reached heaven, it did not trigger panic. It triggered evaluation. Not of you. Of them. There are conversations happening in the spiritual realm that you cannot hear, but you can feel. And lately, you've been feeling something rearranging behind the scenes. Plans you had are stalling. Certain doors feel delayed. Texts go unanswered. Invitations stop coming. You assumed it meant rejection. But what if it means protection? But what if it means protection? Remember when Jesus was accused before Pilate? The crowd shouted. The rumors multiplied. The narrative spread fast. And yet, Scripture says in Isaiah 53 verse 7, "He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth." That silence was not weakness. It was authority under control. You have been tempted to explain yourself. To send long paragraphs. To clear misunderstandings. To defend your name in detail. But every time you tried, something inside you whispered, "Be still." That whisper was not fear. It was instruction. Because heaven does not rush to defend what it has already decided to elevate. Let this settle in your spirit. The decree released over you was not reactive. It was decisive. It declared that what was spoken in secret would not sabotage your future. It declared that false narratives would collapse under their own weight. It declared that what they intended to stain your name would instead polish your resilience. But here is the deeper layer. The review was not only about gossip. It was about alignment. Some of the very people whispering about you had access to you that no longer matched your next season. They were comfortable with your past version. They liked you when you were doubting yourself. They supported you when you were playing small. But when you started healing, when you started setting boundaries, when you stopped apologizing for your standards, something in them reacted. And instead of confronting their insecurity, they constructed a story. Chosen one, you must understand this. When a woman begins to know her worth, insecure environments begin to shake. Your growth exposed what was fragile around you. And heaven saw it all. Psalm 75 verse 7 says, "It is God who judges, He brings one down, He exalts another." Promotion does not come from defending yourself in every room. It comes from divine positioning. That friendship that suddenly feels forced. Positioning. That opportunity that fell through unexpectedly. Positioning. Because the decree included separation clauses. Not everyone who clapped for you was assigned to stay with you. And here's what's about to surprise you: some of the whispers were allowed so you could see clearly. If they had stayed silent, you might have kept them close longer than necessary. If they had continued pretending, you might have trusted them with your next level. But the gossip revealed their capacity. Heaven will sometimes allow betrayal to accelerate discernment. Think about Judas. Jesus knew. He felt it. Yet the betrayal was part of a larger divine sequence. Without exposure, there is no fulfillment of destiny. Now listen carefully. The report that reached heaven included your tears. It included the nights you questioned yourself. It included the moments you almost dimmed your light just to make others comfortable. And attached to that report was a response. Favor. Not loud favor. Not dramatic overnight explosions. Strategic favor. You will begin to notice subtle shifts. New connections forming naturally. Unexpected encouragement from unlikely sources. Opportunities aligning without you forcing them. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. The same mouths that tried to minimize you will watch as doors open that they cannot explain. But here is the tension you must prepare for. Elevation often intensifies exposure. When heaven begins to honor you publicly, those who spoke privately will feel the weight of their own words. And some may attempt to circle back. To reconnect. To act as if nothing happened. This is where discernment becomes critical. Forgiveness is required. Access is not. The decree did not command you to carry everyone forward. It authorized you to move lighter. And if you feel a strange mixture of grief and relief right now, that's normal. Growth always carries both. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are transitioning. But there is something even more powerful hidden inside this decree, something that goes beyond protection and beyond favor. It involves restoration. Because what was spoken against you did not just attempt to damage your reputation. It attempted to damage your confidence. And heaven is about to address that directly. What is coming next will not only silence whispers. It will rebuild something inside you that you didn't realize had cracked. Are you ready to see how the decree shifts from defense to restoration? There is something they did not anticipate. They thought the whispers would weaken you. They assumed the isolation would shrink you. They believed the subtle exclusion would make you question your value permanently. But what they didn't understand is this: when a secret report about you reached heaven, it did not just initiate defense. It initiated restoration. And restoration is more dangerous than revenge. Because revenge only reacts. Restoration rebuilds you stronger than before. Somewhere in the middle of all this, your confidence took a quiet hit. You didn't stop functioning. You didn't fall apart publicly. You still showed up. You still smiled. But internally, something cracked. You started double-checking your words. Overanalyzing your tone. Wondering if maybe you were too bold, too expressive, too driven. You began shrinking in subtle ways. That is what the enemy hoped for. Not your destruction. Your hesitation. Because a hesitant woman delays her destiny. But heaven saw that crack forming in your spirit. And the decree addressed it specifically. Joel 2 verse 25 says, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Restoration is not symbolic. It is precise. It replaces what was consumed. The gossip attempted to consume your confidence. The exclusion attempted to consume your voice. The betrayal attempted to consume your trust. But restoration does not just give back what you lost. It upgrades it. Look at Jesus after the resurrection. The same one they mocked stood in glorified form. The same hands they pierced carried power. The same voice they silenced shook rooms. The wounds were still visible, but they were no longer weak points. They were proof of victory. Chosen one, your wounds are about to become proof. The areas where you felt embarrassed will become areas of authority. The experiences that made you doubt yourself will become the testimony that stabilizes other women around you. You are not being restored quietly so you can blend back in. You are being restored strategically so you can stand differently. And here is what's shifting now. You are about to regain your boldness, but it will feel calmer. You are about to speak again, but with less need for validation. You are about to show up fully, but without explaining yourself. That is restoration. Have you noticed recently how certain things that used to trigger you don't hit the same anymore? Comments that once would have ruined your entire day now just roll past your spirit. That is not numbness. That is strengthening. Heaven is thickening your skin without hardening your heart. Because the decree included emotional maturity. They tried to make you reactive. But you are becoming rooted. And here's the deeper revelation. The report that reached heaven revealed not only what they said about you, but what you believed about yourself. For a moment, you believed their version. You wondered if maybe you were too intense, too spiritual, too disciplined, too different from the crowd. But difference is often the mark of divine assignment. Mary was misunderstood. Esther was scrutinized. Ruth was talked about. Women chosen for impact have always carried whispers around them before they carried crowns upon them. You are in that sequence. And restoration means you will no longer apologize for the way you are wired. You will stop shrinking your ambition to soothe insecure people. You will stop lowering your standards to keep temporary connections. You will stop editing your light to protect fragile egos. And when that shift becomes visible, something else will happen. Those who participated in the whispers will begin to feel exposed, not because you confronted them, but because your peace will confront them. There is nothing more unsettling to an insecure environment than a woman who was talked about and still rises gently. The decree released over you did not authorize chaos. It authorized composure. And composure is power under control. But let me prepare you for what restoration attracts. Attention. As you regain confidence, new eyes will notice. Not all of them pure. Not all of them aligned. Elevation increases visibility. And visibility requires discernment. This next season is not about proving anything. It is about protecting what was rebuilt. Because heaven did not restore you just so you could return to the same circles unchanged. You are being rebuilt for a new environment. And here is the tension you must sit with. Some of the very people who underestimated you will attempt to re-enter your life once they sense the shift. They will feel the confidence. They will notice the calm. They will see the favor aligning. And suddenly, the narrative will change. But discernment will whisper louder than nostalgia. Restoration sharpens intuition. You will not need dramatic confrontations. You will simply feel clarity. And clarity is the next layer of the decree. Because what is coming next is not just emotional restoration. It is repositioning. Doors you thought were permanently closed are about to open, but not the same way. Connections you never imagined will appear, but at the right time. And the environment that once made you question yourself will soon watch you thrive without their approval. But before that repositioning fully unfolds, there is one more internal shift that must happen inside you. It involves forgiveness, power, and letting go without losing strength. And what happens when you release that final weight will shock you more than the gossip ever did. Are you ready to step into that next turning point? There is a weight you have been carrying that no one sees. Not the gossip. Not the betrayal. Not even the disappointment. The weight is resentment. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself you were fine. You said you forgave them. You prayed about it. You moved on externally. But internally, there were moments when you replayed the conversations. When you imagined what you should have said. When you pictured confronting them and finally clearing your name. That weight is subtle. But it is heavy. And here is the truth you may not want to hear. The decree over your life cannot fully manifest while you are still emotionally tied to what tried to break you. Heaven defended you. Heaven restored you. Now heaven is asking you to release. Not because they deserve it. Because you deserve freedom. Ephesians 4 verse 31 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you." Notice, it doesn't say pretend it didn't hurt. It says put it away. That is intentional action. Forgiveness is not pretending. It is choosing not to carry poison meant for someone else. When Jesus hung on the cross, betrayed, falsely accused, humiliated, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That wasn't weakness. That was authority refusing to be chained to offense. Chosen one, if you are going to step into the next level of favor, you cannot drag old wounds into new rooms. And here's what makes this difficult. Part of you feels like forgiving them lets them win. It doesn't. Bitterness keeps you emotionally connected to people who are no longer assigned to your life. Release severs that cord. You don't need revenge. You don't need an apology. You don't need public acknowledgement. Heaven saw it. That is enough. There is a quiet power that rises in a woman who decides, "You will not occupy my mind anymore." That power is peace. And peace is magnetic. You are entering a season where your emotional stability will speak louder than your explanations ever could. When they see you thriving without tension, when they notice you no longer reacting. When your name comes up and you remain unbothered, that silence will be louder than any defense. But forgiveness is not just about them. It's about you forgiving yourself. Yes, yourself. For not seeing the signs sooner. For trusting too deeply. For ignoring red flags. For oversharing in moments you thought were safe. You have replayed those moments privately. You judged yourself. You questioned your discernment. You wondered how you missed it. But hear this clearly. Your kindness was not stupidity. Your openness was not weakness. Your loyalty was not ignorance. It was purity of heart. And you will not allow someone else's insecurity to turn you into someone cold. The decree did not change your softness. It refined your boundaries. There is a difference. Now here is where the shift becomes undeniable. Once you release resentment, space opens. And heaven fills empty space quickly. New alignments will begin forming. Friendships that feel lighter, conversations that feel mutual, connections where you are celebrated without competition. But these new alignments require a clean emotional slate. You cannot attract healthy relationships while secretly rehearsing old betrayals. Let it go. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Quietly. In prayer. In surrender. In a decision that says, I trust God with justice. Romans 12 verse 19 reminds you, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. That is not a threat. It is reassurance. You do not have to manage karma. You do not have to orchestrate consequences. Your role is obedience and growth. And as you release, something surprising will happen. Your confidence will feel lighter. Your smile will feel genuine again. Your energy will return. Because resentment drains more than gossip ever could. But listen carefully. Forgiveness does not mean access. You can release someone and still restrict their proximity. You can forgive and still decline invitations. You can love from a distance. This is maturity. This is wisdom. This is what the decree was preparing you for. Because the next phase of your life will require emotional discipline. You are stepping into environments where discernment matters. Where not everyone clapping is aligned. Where not every opportunity is assignment. And the peace you cultivate now will guide you then. Something is about to accelerate. Momentum is building. You may not see it physically yet, but spiritually, pieces are locking into place. The secret report that reached heaven has completed its review phase. Restoration has begun. Release has been initiated. Now comes repositioning. And repositioning will move faster than you expect. Opportunities will appear suddenly. Conversations will shift unexpectedly. Doors you thought were sealed will crack open without warning. But when that acceleration begins, you must remember what you learned in this valley. Silence is power. Peace is strategy. Discernment is protection. Because the next move will not just elevate you. It will reveal who was watching you the entire time. And when you see who steps forward next, you will understand why the whispers had to happen in the first place. Are you prepared for what repositioning is about to expose? Repositioning does not knock politely. It shifts suddenly. One day you are overlooked. The next day, you are needed. One season you are questioned. The next season, you are consulted. One chapter you are excluded. The next chapter, you are essential. This is where the decree begins to manifest visibly. The secret report that reached heaven has completed its purpose. The whispers did not destroy you. They documented you. They revealed your resilience. They exposed hidden insecurity around you. And now, heaven is repositioning you where your value is undeniable. But listen carefully. Repositioning will feel uncomfortable before it feels victorious. Because growth requires movement. Some of you are about to outgrow spaces that once felt permanent. Jobs. Friend groups. Ministries. Even certain family dynamics. Not in rebellion. Not in pride. But in alignment. When Joseph was talked about by his brothers, they thought the pit was the end of his influence. What they didn't realize was that the pit was transportation. The gossip was the vehicle. The betrayal was the transition. You thought that conversation about you would trap you. It transported you. Genesis 50 verse 20 says, "What you meant for evil against me, God meant for good. That is not cliché. That is decree language. It means intention does not override divine plan. The intention was to shrink you. The outcome will enlarge you. Now here is what you must guard carefully in this next phase. Humility. When doors begin opening, when opportunities begin aligning, when your name starts being mentioned in rooms of influence, you must remember the valley that shaped you. The tears that humbled you. The silence that trained you. Elevation without humility creates isolation. Elevation with humility creates legacy. You are not being repositioned to prove people wrong. You are being repositioned to fulfill purpose. And purpose will demand courage. Because the same confidence that was attacked in private must now operate in public. You cannot step into new rooms still whispering to yourself, "What if they were right about me?" They were not right. Heaven reviewed the file. The decree stands. Now walk like it. But let me prepare you for something deeper. Some of the very people who participated in the whispers will witness your elevation. Not to shame them. Not to humiliate them. But to demonstrate something powerful. You did not fight back, and you still rose. That will confuse them. Because they expected reaction. They did not expect restraint. They expected drama. They did not expect discipline. And when they see you positioned where they never imagined, conviction will speak louder than confrontation ever could. But here is the most beautiful part of this entire decree. The report that reached heaven did not only defend your reputation. It refined your identity. You no longer need approval the way you once did. You no longer crave validation from inconsistent voices. You no longer fear being misunderstood. That freedom is priceless. And with that freedom, something remarkable happens. You become a safe space for other women who are walking through similar storms. You will begin noticing people opening up to you about betrayal. About gossip. About feeling isolated. And your testimony will stabilize them. Not because you preach at them. But because your calm proves survival. What tried to embarrass you will now equip you. What tried to isolate you will now position you as a guide. And this is why it had to happen quietly first. Heaven was not just protecting your name. Heaven was building your capacity. Now, as this repositioning unfolds, there will be moments where you feel almost overwhelmed by the shift. Opportunities may come quickly. Responsibilities may increase. Visibility may grow. Stay grounded. Stay prayerful. Stay discerning. Because not every open door is permanent, and not every new face is permanent either. The lesson of the whispers taught you something invaluable. Proximity must be earned, not assumed. Carry that wisdom forward. And now hear this final truth. The decree released over your life was not temporary. It was transformative. The gossip season is ending. The restoration season is stabilizing. The release season has cleansed you. And the repositioning season is beginning. You will look back one day and realize that the very moment you thought your reputation was under attack was the exact moment heaven decided to accelerate your destiny. So stand taller. Speak clearly. Move wisely. You were reviewed. You were defended. You were restored. And now, you are being revealed. The whispers reached heaven. But the decree is echoing back to earth. Are you ready to walk fully into the version of yourself that heaven has already approved?